Hey everyone, Scott here with another quick tip for you. Took a couple of pictures of the moon 2 nights ago and did a couple of simple things that I found interesting. One of them was the notion that the order of the adjustments in the adjustments pane in Aperture, wanting to do those in the correct order. And the other is using a free tool to do some layering and blend two images together to make something a little more artistic. But let's first focus on the inside of Aperture part of it. So when I first took this shot, I took a look at the hot and cold areas like I normally do, and a bunch of the moon is blown out. Now, normally when I see that, my first instinct is to go to the recovery slider and start playing with it, and pull in some of that detail. However, the white balance is above it, and looking at this picture, the white balance is definitely off. I shoot raw, so I don't generally care what white balance is set to in the camera. But the sky was a lot bluer color, a lot deeper. So let me turn off the highlights, and the whitest part was really the moon itself. And so picking that, this already starts to look a lot better. Now when I look at the highlights again, hot and cold areas, which was my hotkey Q, so it's on, now it's off, now it's on, now it's off. It's taken care of my problems with blown out areas. I turn off white balance again, you can see it there, turn it back on, and everything's looking good. So that's one perfect example of Apple putting thought into the order of these adjustment bricks. So do play with your white balance prior to doing anything else. And the other thing we'll do today is just a little more fun, a little more artistic-y. This is the other shot that I had, and you can see here's the same moon, here's those same palm trees, and just above these houses here. And these great clouds. I mean, I wish that I could have positioned myself in such a way that I would have been just mainly focusing on the moon and the trees and still grab some of these clouds. I couldn't do it with the time that I had and generally the topography of the land around me, short of scaling someone's wall and climbing on their roof, and that's not a really good thing to do. So we'll use perfect layers from On 1 to blend these two things together. Again, I'll set my white balance on this guy as well. I'll just use the moon as a quick spot. And that'll give us a pretty good, the sky is where I'm going to be blending. That looks pretty good. We've got that purplish tone coming in here, and it's about the same up here. So if you have not ever used Perfect Layers before, you can get it for free from on1software.com. I have the full suite installed, but if you just get Perfect Layers, it'll work great. I'm going to launch these two things into Perfect Layers. We'll do a quick little blending to bring these clouds from this shot into this one. And I think I'm also going to end up moving the moon down just a little bit because I wished I'd gotten to where I was 5 minutes before I did. So let's launch over into Perfect Layers. I'll edit with a plugin. I will choose Perfect Layers from my list, and I'll see you over in Perfect Layers in a minute. All right, so here we are in Perfect Layers. The two files I selected in Aperture each came in as a layer, and I want to bring in the clouds from this layer into my top photo. The first thing I'll do is I will lower the opacity of the top layer so I can see this other one. Then switch over there to this bottom layer, and I'll use the transform tool to kind of move these clouds to about where I want them. So I'm looking at the larger palm trees, bringing the clouds about there. I'm not worrying about the overlap with the moon right now. As I said, I think I'll take the moon and move that down a little bit. But just getting that to right about there, that looks pretty cool. I will also make sure that I'm extending, I'll do it there, all the way to the edge of the photo, so when I mask in, we don't have any straggling, strange things looking there. Apply that change. Now, back to the top layer, and here we have our moon there. Now I will make a copy of this layer, duplicate it, because I'm going to want to come back and grab that moon in a little bit. So let me take that copy and stick it down on the bottom. So we have this stack up here. Our clouds are underneath. We can see I've shifted them into position. We have our moon photo here. Let's grab a masking tool. We'll stick the bug. It's called a masking bug. And we'll rotate that around a little bit and start to expand it, and we'll see those clouds start to come into view. I'm going to lower the feathering because I'm hitting those trees too much. And then bring it up a little bit. Let's go all the way across. And that's already starting to look a lot better. So that's cool. All right, so we'll take that and be happy. The other thing we'll do now is we're going to remove this moon for now. So this is very similar tool to the retouch brush in Aperture. Let's just give it a quick click, and that looks pretty darn nice. So we've taken these two layers, the one with our close-up moonshot, the one with the clouds. Let's merge that down. And now lastly, I want to bring the large moon back into the picture. So again, I will lower the opacity of the top layer so I can see the bottom one. And now I'll switch to the bottom one, use transform again. I'm going to bring that moon down closer to the hillside. Something right about there. That looks fine. Apply it. We'll come back up to our top layer and grab the masking brush this time, and I want to punch through entirely to that new moon that we have down there. That looks pretty good. And then bring the opacity of our top layer back up. And there we go. Magically, we've got, some nice wandy wavy trees, more interesting sky, and the moon a little bit lower. Lastly, I can save this. It'll return it over to Aperture. Certainly, there's some other touch-ups I'll want to do once I'm back in Aperture. We darken this hillside a little bit. See if some edge sharpening might crispen up some of the motion blur here in the trees. But essentially, that's the crux of it. And so there's our modified image back in Aperture. So again, perfect layers, very cool tool, free. You should grab it if you haven't grabbed it already. It gives one thing that we're all hoping for Aperture X or 4 or whatever they'll call it to bring: layers. Anyway, that's it today. Have fun.